The crown was sitting in a chicken coop, filled with rainwater and feathers, when Clara Winters found it. She had been searching for her best-laying hen for 20 minutes, muttering under her breath about foxes and absent-minded strangers, when the glint of metal caught her eye through the wire mesh. Clara stopped, stared, and then yanked open the coop door with enough force to send 3 hens scattering. The object was unmistakable, even caked in mud and droppings. A crown. Not a costume piece or some antique replica, but an actual crown, heavy with age and worked in patterns that seemed to shift in the morning light. "What in God's name?" she breathed, pulling it free. The metal beneath the grime was dark, almost black, etched with symbols she didn't recognize. Enamel work in deep crimson traced the band, and when she turned it, she saw what looked like dried blood caught in the filigree. Her stomach turned. Someone had put a crown in her chicken coop. Someone had put a priceless, possibly cursed artifact where her hens drank. Clara was not a woman who panicked easily. She had inherited the cottage and its 3 acres from her grandmother 2 years ago, had learned to keep bees and grow lavender and make enough from her honey and essential oils to live quietly. She was 24, self-sufficient, and thoroughly uninterested in drama, but this was drama walking itself to her door and setting up camp. She marched toward the cottage, crown in hand, ready to demand answers from the only person who could possibly be responsible. The stranger who had appeared 3 days ago, asking in a voice like silk and shadows if she had a room to let. She had said no. Her cottage had 2 rooms total, her bedroom and a main room that served as kitchen, workspace, and living area combined. There was nowhere to let. He had offered enough money to make her pause. Enough money to fix the leaking roof and replace the beehives that had failed over winter. Enough money that she had found herself saying, "There's a shed. It has a cot and it's weatherproof. That's all I can offer." He had taken it, hadn't even looked inside first, just inclined his head, handed her a roll of bills that made her eyes water, and moved in with a single leather bag. She hadn't seen much of him since. He kept to himself, left before dawn, returned after dark. But she had noticed things, the way he moved too quietly for a man his size, the way her hens went silent when he passed, the fact that he was beautiful in a way that made her uneasy, all white hair and pale skin and features too perfect to be natural. Clara kicked open the shed door without knocking. He was sitting on the cot, reading a book so old the cover had no title. He looked up, and for a moment she forgot why she was angry. His eyes were the color of winter storms, gray and silver and fathomless. His hair fell past his shoulders, white as fresh snow, and his face could have been carved by someone who had never seen an imperfect angle. Then she remembered the crown. "Explain this," she snapped, holding it up. "Right now." He set the book aside carefully, rose to his full height, which was considerable, and looked at the crown with something that might have been amusement. "You found it." "I found it being used as a water dish by my chickens. Do you have any idea how unsanitary that is? Do you have any idea how much that thing is probably worth?" "Quite a lot," he said mildly, "though its value is largely symbolic." Clara's eye twitched. "Why is there a crown in my chicken coop?" "I needed somewhere to put it, and the hens seemed appreciative of the contribution." His voice carried an accent she couldn't place, something old world and refined. "I apologize if it caused inconvenience." Inconvenience. Clara resisted the urge to throw the crown at him. This isn't some garage sale find. This is the kind of thing that belongs in a museum or a vault, or literally anywhere that isn't covered in chicken excrement. "Where did you even get this?" He was quiet for a moment, studying her with those unnerving eyes. Then he said, "It was mine." "Yours?" "Yes. You expect me to believe you own a crown?" "Owned," he corrected gently. "Past tense. I have no use for it now." Clara's patience, already thin, snapped. "Listen, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I run a legitimate business here. I can't have stolen artifacts or weird occult items or whatever this is on my property, so either you explain what's going on or you take your mysterious rich person nonsense somewhere else." Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, but something sadder. "You are correct," he said. You deserve an explanation. My name is Hadrian Ashcroft. Until 4 days ago, I was king of the Noctis Court, the ruling body of vampires in this region. I abdicated my throne, left my realm, and came here seeking a simpler existence. The crown is real, as am I. I am a vampire, Clara Winters, and I would very much like to continue renting your shed if you will permit it. Clara stared at him. Then she started laughing, because what else could she do? The whole thing was absurd. Vampires weren't real. Kings who gave up thrones to live in garden sheds weren't real. Men who looked like fallen angels and spoke like poetry weren't real, except he wasn't laughing. He just waited, patient and still, while her laughter died into uncertain silence. You're serious, she said finally. Completely. Prove it. He moved faster than her eyes could track. One moment he was standing by the cot, the next he was beside her, close enough that she could see the inhuman pallor of his skin, the way no pulse beat in his throat. He opened his mouth slightly, and she saw fangs, delicate and sharp, where canines should have been. Clara's heart hammered. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to stay still, to meet his eyes. Okay, she said, voice only shaking a little. Okay, you're a vampire, and you were a king. Yes. And you left your throne to live in my shed. Yes. Why? Hadrian stepped back, giving her space. The fangs disappeared, hidden behind a too-perfect smile. Because I have been king for 300 years, and I was tired of it. Tired of the politics, the bloodshed, the endless maneuvering. I wanted to know what it was like to live a life instead of ruling one. He glanced around the small shed, at the simple cot and the single window. This seemed as far from a throne room as one could get. Clara's mind raced. She should tell him to leave, should run to the village and warn people that a vampire was living in her shed, should do anything except stand here having a reasonable conversation with a creature that probably wanted to drain her dry. But he had been here 3 days, and he hadn't hurt her, hadn't even been rude. And the money he had given her was very, very real. The crown stays out of the chicken coop, she said finally. Hadrian's smile became genuine, lighting his whole face. Agreed. And you don't bite anyone in the village, or me, or my chickens. You have my word. And if I have questions, you answer them honestly. I will do my best. Clara nodded slowly, still clutching the muddy crown. Fine, you can stay, but we're cleaning this thing properly before you try to throw it away again. She turned to leave, then paused. Hadrian. Yes? Do you actually need to rent the shed, or were you just being polite? I mean, you're immortal. You could probably afford a mansion. His expression softened. I could, but I chose this. Chose you, in a way, though I know how strange that sounds. When I decided to leave, I closed my eyes and walked until I found somewhere that felt right. I opened them in your lavender field. Something warm and dangerous uncurled in Clara's chest. She ignored it. Right, well, welcome to the middle of nowhere, I guess. She left before he could see her blush. The first delegation arrived 2 weeks later. Clara was harvesting lavender, her hands purple with pollen and her mind blissfully empty, when 3 black cars rolled up the dirt road to her cottage. She straightened, shears in hand, and watched as a group of people emerged. They were all unnaturally beautiful, all pale-skinned and dark-eyed, dressed in expensive clothes that looked wildly out of place against the pastoral landscape. The leader, a woman with hair like spun gold and a dress that probably cost more than Clara's cottage, approached with a smile that showed too many teeth. Good afternoon, the woman said, her voice honey-sweet and cold. We are looking for Hadrian Ashcroft. We were told he might be here. Clara's grip tightened on the shears. Who's asking? I am Lady Seraphina, of the Winter Court. These are my attendants. We have urgent business with the king. There's no king here, Clara said carefully. Just me and my bees. Seraphina's smile didn't waver. Come now, we have tracked him to this location. Surely a simple human would not attempt to obstruct the Noctis court. The threat was delicate but unmistakable. Clara felt her temper rise. I don't care what court you're from. This is private property and you're trampling my lavender. So either state your business properly or leave." Before Serafina could respond, Hadrian emerged from the shed. He had been helping Clara repair the beehive frames, and his white hair was tied back with twine, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked domestic and entirely unbothered by the sudden appearance of what Clara assumed were vampire nobles. "Serafina," he said, nodding politely. "This is unexpected." The woman's expression cracked, showing genuine shock. "Your Majesty, we have been searching for you for days. The court is in chaos. You must return immediately." "I must do nothing," Hadrian corrected, still calm. "I abdicated. I made my intentions clear." "You left without naming an heir." Another vampire, male, stepped forward. His voice shook with barely controlled fury. "Do you understand what you have done? The law states that an abdication without succession triggers open claiming. 4 houses are already positioning for war." Hadrian's jaw tightened. "Then the court will have to adapt. Find a new way to choose leadership." "We need you," Serafina said, and now her voice held genuine desperation. "Please, Your Majesty, return with us. The realm needs stability. The realm needs to learn to govern itself without relying on a single individual who has grown weary of the burden." Hadrian's voice was firm, but not unkind. "I am sorry for the difficulty this causes, but my decision is final." Clara watched the exchange with growing understanding. Hadrian hadn't just left. He had blown up whatever vampire political system existed, and now they were scrambling to manage the fallout. Part of her wanted to pull him aside and demand to know what he had been thinking. The other part, the part that had gotten to know him over the past 2 weeks, understood. He had been serious about wanting a different life, serious enough to break everything to get it. "You would choose this?" Serafina gestured at the cottage, at Clara, at the humble surroundings with barely concealed disdain. "You would choose mortality and obscurity over your birthright?" "I would choose freedom," Hadrian said quietly. "And yes, I would choose this." His eyes found Clara's, and something in that gaze made her breath catch. There was warmth there, and certainty, and a tenderness that terrified her. The vampires argued for another hour. They pleaded, they threatened subtly, they appealed to duty and honor and 3 centuries of tradition. Hadrian remained unmoved. Finally, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Serafina accepted defeat. "The court will not forget this," she said, and Clara couldn't tell if it was a threat or a promise. "When the wars begin, the blood will be on your hands." "The blood has always been on my hands," Hadrian replied. "At least now it will not be by my command." They left as they had arrived, a procession of black cars on a dirt road, incongruous and unsettling. Clara waited until they were out of sight before turning to Hadrian. "Wars?" she demanded. "You started wars?" "I ended one," he corrected. "The war I was fighting by remaining king. The constant struggle to maintain power, to keep the houses in line. It was endless, and I was the only thing holding it together through sheer force of will. Now they will have to find another way." "People could die." "Vampires," he said. "Vampires could die, and yes, that weighs on me. But Clara, I was dying too. Perhaps not in body, but in spirit. I could feel myself becoming hollow, a crown with no man beneath it. I needed to leave before there was nothing left of me to save." His honesty disarmed her. Clara looked at him, really looked, and saw the exhaustion hiding behind his composed exterior. 300 years. She couldn't imagine it. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay, but if vampire politicians keep showing up and ruining my lavender, I'm charging you extra rent." Hadrian's laugh was surprised and genuine. "That seems fair." They walked back to the cottage together as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. Clara tried to ignore how natural it felt, having him beside her. How right. She was falling for him, she realized with creeping horror. Falling for a vampire king who had given up everything and somehow chosen her unremarkable corner of the world to land in. It was the worst possible idea, and she couldn't seem to stop. Spring turned to summer. And Hadrian proved himself useful in ways Clara hadn't expected. He could work through the night without tiring, which meant the repairs she had been putting off for months were suddenly completed. The roof no longer leaked. The fence around her property was reinforced. The beehives multiplied under his careful attention, and her lavender fields expanded. He was also, she discovered, an excellent cook. Not fancy restaurant cooking, but the kind of food that made her cottage smell like a home. Bread baking in the old oven, stew simmering on the stove. He couldn't eat it, of course, but he seemed to take pleasure in watching her enjoy it. "Where did you learn this?" she asked one evening, soaking crusty bread in rich broth. "I was not always king," Hadrian said, kneading dough for tomorrow's loaf. "I was born the third son of a minor noble with no expectation of power. I learned to cook because I enjoyed it, and then I learned to rule because circumstances demanded it. One skill proved far more useful than I expected." Clara licked her fingers, watching him work. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, strong and sure. "Do you miss it? Being king?" He was quiet for a moment, considering. "I miss the certainty of it. I knew who I was, what I was meant to do. Now I am adrift, and some days that freedom feels like drowning." He glanced at her. "But then I harvest honey with you, or fix a fence post, or simply sit in the evening quiet, and I remember why I left. I do not miss the throne. I miss knowing my place in the world." "Your place is here," Clara said before she could stop herself. "I mean for now, while you figure things out." Hadrian's hands stilled. "Clara, don't." She stood abruptly, gathering her dishes. "Don't say whatever you're about to say. I know what this is. You're hiding out, taking a break from your real life. Eventually you'll get bored of playing farmer, and you'll go back to your court or your throne or whatever. I'm not an idiot." "You are the furthest thing from an idiot," Hadrian said, and his voice was so gentle it hurt. "But you are wrong about one thing. This is not a game to me. This is not a temporary escape." "How can you possibly know that? It's been 2 months. "I have lived for 3 centuries, Clara. I know the difference between a whim and a choice that changes everything." He set down the dough, moved toward her. "You think you are a diversion. You are not. You are the first thing in 100 years that has made me want to wake up and see what the day brings. You are sunlight I cannot touch, and stubbornness I cannot outwit, and kindness I do not deserve. You are not a hobby. You are the reason I left." Clara's heart hammered. "You didn't even know me when you left." "No, but I was looking for you anyway, looking for whatever you represent, a life that is lived instead of endured. A place where I am simply Hadrian, not a crown or a legacy or a solution to everyone else's problems." He stopped a few feet away, giving her space. "I am falling in love with you. I have been since you yelled at me about the crown, and I understand if that is unwelcome, but I will not lie about it." Clara couldn't breathe. This was insane. This was impossible. She was a human woman who sold honey at farmers' markets and lived in a cottage her grandmother had left her. He was an immortal vampire king who could probably buy her entire village without noticing the expense. "I'm human," she said weakly. "I know. I'm going to age. I'm going to die. I know. This is a terrible idea." "Probably." Hadrian's smile was sad and hopeful at once. "But I find I do not care. I would rather have whatever time you can give me than an eternity of hollow existence." Clara wanted to be sensible, wanted to protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak. But she had watched him over these months, had seen the way he gentled his strength around her bees, the way he listened when she talked about her grandmother, the way he existed in her space without trying to control or change it. He had fit himself into her life instead of demanding she reshape herself for his. And God help her, she loved him too. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? I'm falling for you too. It's ridiculous, and it's probably going to end badly, and I don't care." She crossed the distance between them, looked up into those storm-gray eyes. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not leaving this cottage. I'm not becoming part of your vampire world or your court or whatever. If we do this, you stay here. You stay human adjacent. Because this life, This simple, boring life is what I chose, and I'm not giving it up." Hadrian's expression was reverent. He cupped her face with hands that could break stone but touched her like she was precious. "I would not ask you to. This life is what I chose too. You are what I chose." When he kissed her, it was careful and sweet, like he was afraid she might disappear. Clara kissed him back, rising on her toes, threading her fingers through his white hair. He tasted like winter and promises, and she fell into it completely. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard despite only one of them needing air, Clara laughed. "This is insane." "Completely," Hadrian agreed, but he was smiling, and it was the most human expression she had ever seen on his too-perfect face. They made it work. Somehow, impossibly, they made it work. The second delegation arrived in late summer, and this time they were less polite. Clara was in the village selling her honey at the weekly market when Hadrian appeared at her stall, looking grim. "We need to go. Now." She didn't argue. They packed up quickly, loaded everything into her truck, and drove back to the cottage in tense silence. As they turned onto her road, Clara saw what had spooked him. More black cars, more vampires, and this time they had made themselves at home on her property. "Stay in the truck," Hadrian said. "Absolutely not." Clara was already climbing out. "This is my land." A vampire she didn't recognize stood in her lavender field, crushing plants under expensive shoes. He was tall, broader than Hadrian, with silver-white hair and eyes like frozen amber. When he smiled, it was all predator. "Hadrian," the man said, voice booming and jovial in a way that felt threatening. "There you are. I was beginning to think you had gotten lost." "Lord Constantine," Hadrian replied, and Clara could hear the tension in his voice. "You are not welcome here." "Oh, but I have every right to be here. You see, when you abandoned your throne, you created a power vacuum. The houses have been fighting for months now, and I have emerged as the strongest claimant." Constantine spread his arms wide. "I am to be the new king of the Noctis court. I came to thank you for the opportunity." "Congratulations," Hadrian said flatly. "Now leave." "Not just yet. You see, there is some debate about the legitimacy of my claim. Some say the throne should pass by combat, others by council vote, others by blood inheritance. It is all very complicated." Constantine's gaze slid to Clara, and she felt pinned by it. "But everyone agrees that the situation would be much simpler if the previous king simply came back, or if the previous king were eliminated entirely as a potential rival." Clara's blood ran cold. "You're threatening him." "I am offering clarity," Constantine corrected. "Return with me, Hadrian. Take back your throne, name me your heir, and abdicate properly. Or refuse, and I will be forced to ensure you never pose a threat to my rule." "You would kill me?" Hadrian's voice was dangerously soft. "If necessary, though I would prefer to avoid it. You were a good king once, but you are also in my way." Constantine's smile widened. "Of course, there is a third option. I could simply take your human as insurance. Keep her comfortable in the court until you see reason." Hadrian moved before Constantine finished speaking. He was across the field in a blur, his hand around the other vampire's throat, lifting him off the ground. The violence of it shocked Clara, even though she knew what he was. "You will not touch her," Hadrian said, and his voice was nothing like the gentle man who baked bread in her kitchen. This was a king speaking, ancient and absolute. "You will not threaten her. You will leave this place and you will not return." Constantine laughed, even with Hadrian's hand crushing his windpipe. "Or what? You will kill me? That would make you a kingslayer, and the court would never forgive it. You would be hunted for the rest of eternity." "Then I will be hunted. But you will be dead, and Clara will be safe." The clearing went silent. The other vampires, Constantine's attendants, watched with wide eyes. Clara realized she was holding her breath. Finally, Constantine tapped Hadrian's wrist in submission. Hadrian released him, stepping back but staying between the other vampire and Clara. Constantine rubbed his throat, his expression thoughtful. You truly mean to stay here? To live as a human, with a human, and let the realm burn? The realm will find its way, Hadrian said. It does not need me. But it needs someone. And if you will not provide stability, then you cannot interfere when others attempt to do so. Constantine straightened his clothes. I will leave you in peace, Hadrian. But understand this. The court is changing. The old ways are dying because you abandoned them. What comes next will not be as forgiving as what came before. He left, and his entourage followed. Clara waited until the cars were distant specks before letting herself shake. Hey, Hadrian said softly, turning to her. Are you all right? He was going to kidnap me. Clara's voice sounded distant to her own ears. He was going to use me to control you. I would not have let that happen. You can't promise that. You're one person, Hadrian, and apparently your entire vampire government wants you back or dead. The fear was turning to anger, hot and cleansing. I knew this was complicated, but I didn't realize you were painting a target on both our backs. I know. I am sorry. I should have warned you more clearly. Hadrian's hands hovered near her shoulders, uncertain. If you want me to leave, I will. I can disappear completely, lead them away from you. Clara wanted to say yes, wanted to protect herself, her simple life, her safe existence. But the thought of him leaving, of waking up without him in the shed, of harvesting lavender alone, was unbearable. No, she said. No, you stay. But we need to fix this, Hadrian. We need to find a way to stabilize your court so they stop coming here and threatening us. There may not be a way, not without me returning. Then we find a third option. Clara grabbed his hand, squeezing hard. You're brilliant and you're 300 years old. There has to be something we can do that doesn't involve you leaving or us spending the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Hadrian looked at her like she was a miracle. You are extraordinary. I'm practical. There's a difference. She pulled him toward the cottage. Come on, let's think this through. They spent the evening researching vampire law, which turned out to be extensively documented and wildly archaic. Hadrian explained the structure of the Noctis court. 4 major houses, dozens of minor ones, all held together by tradition and the strength of whoever sat the throne. The problem is the succession law, he said, surrounded by papers and old books he had retrieved from storage. It was written when challenges were settled by combat, when the strongest vampire ruled. But the realm has evolved. We have councils and diplomacy now. The law has not caught up. Clara read through a particularly dense legal text, squinting at the old-fashioned language. What if you change the law? I cannot. I abdicated. But you're still technically king until someone else is crowned, right? You left without naming an heir, but that doesn't mean you've lost all authority. Just that you've created a succession crisis. She looked up at him. What if you used that authority to reform the system before you left properly? Hadrian went very still. That would be unprecedented. So is a king abandoning his throne to live in a shed? You're already breaking tradition. Clara could see the idea taking shape, could see the possibilities. You go back, not to stay, but to fix the system. Create a way to choose leaders that doesn't rely on one person or combat. Then you abdicate properly, with the new system in place. They would never accept it. They might if the alternative is civil war. Clara leaned forward. You said Constantine is the strongest claimant, but there's still debate. That means no one has consolidated power yet. If you step in now, while it is still chaotic, and offer a solution that prevents bloodshed, they might listen. Hadrian was quiet for a long time, thinking it through. Clara watched him, saw the way his mind worked through scenarios and consequences. This was the king he had been, she realized. Strategic, careful, brilliant. It would require going back to the court, he said finally. It would mean leaving you, at least temporarily. Then I come with you. Absolutely not. It would be dangerous. More dangerous than staying here alone while vampire lords know where I live. Clara crossed her arms. I'm coming, Hadrian. You need someone watching your back, and I'm not letting you walk into a political nightmare without backup. You are human. You cannot survive in that world. Then you protect me, like you did today. She met his eyes. I'm not fragile, and I'm not stupid, but I am serious about this, about us, which means I'm serious about fixing the mess that's threatening us, so you can either take me with you, or I'll find my way there myself. Hadrian looked at her like she was the sun and he was willing to burn. You are the most stubborn woman I have ever met. Good thing you love stubborn. Clara grinned, fierce and certain. So, when do we leave? Tomorrow, Hadrian said. We leave tomorrow, and we either save the realm or doom it entirely. No pressure, then. He kissed her, deep and desperate, and Clara kissed him back with equal fervor. Tomorrow, they would face vampire politics and ancient power structures. Tonight, they had each other. It would have to be enough. The Noctis Court existed beneath the city, in a network of tunnels and chambers that had been carved from stone centuries ago. Hadrian led Clara through the entrance hidden behind a historical building, downstairs that seemed to go on forever, into a world she had never imagined. It was beautiful and terrible. The architecture was Gothic, all soaring arches and intricate stonework, lit by chandeliers that cast everything in flickering gold. Vampires moved through the halls, pale and elegant, their voices echoing in languages Clara didn't recognize. She felt very small, very human, very out of place. Hadrian kept her close, one hand always at her back. He had dressed for this, trading his simple farmer's clothes for attire that reminded her he had been royalty. Black coat with silver embroidery, hair loose around his shoulders, every inch the king he claimed not to be. "Stay near me," he murmured as they walked. "Do not drink anything you are offered, do not accept gifts, and do not make promises. You know I've read fairy tales, right? I know how this works." His smile was brief. "Good. Apply every lesson." They were met by an attendant, a young vampire who looked at Hadrian with wide eyes. "Your Majesty, we were not expecting you." "I am here to address the court," Hadrian said. "Gather the house leaders. I will speak to them in 1 hour." "Of course, Your Majesty. And the human?" "Is with me and under my protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally." The attendant paled, which Clara found impressive given vampires were already colorless. "Understood, Your Majesty." They were given chambers to wait in, a suite of rooms that were more luxurious than anything Clara had ever experienced. She ran her fingers over silk tapestries, stared at paintings that looked like actual old masters, and tried not to think about how much everything probably cost. "This was yours?" she asked, looking around. "Yes, I lived here for nearly 200 years. Hadrian stood by the window, looking out at the underground city. "It feels like a lifetime ago." Clara joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You can do this. You know these people. You know the law. You can find a way. I hope you are right." He squeezed her hand. "Whatever happens, Clara, know that I do not regret leaving. I do not regret choosing you." "Good. Because I'm not done with you yet." The hour passed too quickly. They walked together to the throne room, a massive chamber dominated by a dais and the empty throne that had been Hadrian's. The room was filled with vampires, all turned to watch as they entered. Clara felt the weight of their stares, felt her humanity like a brand. Hadrian walked to the throne but did not sit. Instead, he stood before it, addressing the assembled court with a voice that carried through the chamber. "I am Hadrian Ashcroft, and I was your king. I left because I could no longer bear the weight of this crown, because I had given this realm 3 centuries and had nothing left to give. I know my departure has caused chaos. I know the houses fight even now for control, but I did not come here to reclaim the throne. I came to offer a solution." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Clara saw Serafina near the front and Constantine standing with a group of powerful-looking vampires, all watching, all waiting. "Our succession law is broken," Hadrian continued. "It relies on the strength of a single individual, and when that individual falls or leaves, we descend into violence. This has happened before, and it will happen again unless we change. So I propose a reformation, a council of house leaders elected by their houses who rule together. No single king, no single point of failure. A government that survives regardless of who sits in power. The room exploded with voices, some angry, some shocked, some intrigued. Constantine pushed forward. "You would destroy centuries of tradition," he roared. "The throne is not just a seat, it is a symbol of our strength." "It is a symbol of our weakness," Hadrian countered. "We cannot survive if our stability depends on one person's willingness to endure. We must evolve." "And who would lead this council?" Serafina asked, her voice cutting through the noise. "Who decides which houses have power?" "The houses themselves. Each major house selects a representative. Minor houses form coalitions to select theirs. The council makes decisions together, with majority rule." Hadrian's gaze swept the room. "It is not perfect, but it is better than war. Better than tearing the realm apart over who can kill their way to the throne." Clara watched the crowd, saw the calculation in their eyes. They were considering it. Not all of them, but enough. "You ask us to give up our way of life," an older vampire said from the back. "To abandon what we are." "I ask you to adapt," Hadrian said, "to choose survival over tradition. You can cling to the old ways and destroy yourselves, or you can build something new and stronger." The debate raged for hours. Clara stood to the side, observing, occasionally catching Hadrian's eye. He was magnificent like this, she realized, commanding and certain, using centuries of experience to navigate the political currents. This was what he had been, and part of her ached to see him shine in his element. But she also saw the strain in him, the way this environment exhausted him. He was good at this, but he did not love it. Finally, as dawn approached above ground, a vote was called. The house leaders gathered, and one by one they declared their positions. It was close, so close Clara held her breath. When the final vote was tallied, the Reformation had passed by a narrow margin. Hadrian closed his eyes briefly, relief flooding his features. "Then it is done. I will draft the formal documents tonight, and the council will take power immediately." He looked across the assembled vampires. "I name Serafina of the Winter Court as the first council chair, to serve until the houses organize their elections. She will guide you through this transition." Serafina looked stunned, but she inclined her head in acceptance. "I will serve the realm." "And now," Hadrian said, his voice quieter, "I abdicate properly and completely. I am no longer your king. The throne is empty, and it will remain so. May the council serve you better than I could." He turned and walked away from the throne, from the crown, from 300 years of power. He walked directly to Clara, took her hand, and together they left the throne room. The court watched them go in silence. They emerged into the human world just as true dawn broke, light spilling across the city in shades of pink and gold. Hadrian flinched slightly, keeping to the shadows, but he was smiling. "You did it," Clara said, squeezing his hand. "You actually did it. We did it. Your idea saved them." He looked at her with wonder. "You saved my realm, Clara Winters." "I gave you permission to save yourself," she corrected. "There's a difference." They made their way back to the cottage, exhausted and relieved. As they walked through the lavender fields in the soft morning light, Clara felt the weight of the past days lifting. It was done. Hadrian had fixed the crisis he created, had given the vampires a way forward. Now he was truly free. Autumn arrived, painting the world in amber and crimson, and with it came a peace neither of them had dared hope for. The vampire court left them alone. Serafina sent a letter once, formal and polite, thanking Hadrian for his service and informing him that the council was functioning well. Constantine had been elected to represent his house, and while the adjustment was difficult, the realm was stable. Hadrian settled into his life at the cottage with a contentment that seemed to surprise him. He worked Clara's land, expanded the lavender fields, built new beehives with his own hands. The work was physical and unglamorous, and he loved it. Clara watched him change, watched him relax into himself. The weight he had carried, the strain of being king, gradually fell away. He laughed more, smiled more, existed in the present instead of being consumed by duty. They were happy, genuinely, impossibly happy, but there was still one question between them, unspoken but present. What would happen when Clara grew old? She brought it up one evening in October, as they sat by the fire. The cottage was warm, smelling of the stew Hadrian had made and the lavender bundles drying in the rafters. "We need to talk about the future," Clara said, watching the flames dance. Hadrian looked up from the book he was reading. "What about it?" "About me being human, about aging." She took a breath. "About whether I should become like you." He went very still. "Have you been thinking about this?" "Of course I've been thinking about it. I'm in love with an immortal vampire. The math isn't great for me long term." Hadrian set his book aside, giving her his full attention. "I will not turn you unless you truly want it, Clara. Not to keep me, not out of fear. Only if it is what you genuinely desire for yourself." "But would you want me to? If it were just about what you wanted?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I would want forever with you," he admitted. "But I would also want you to have the choice I never had. I was turned young, and I have lived centuries. You should have the chance to experience a full human life, to age naturally, to exist as you were meant to." "That's very noble," Clara said dryly. "But it doesn't answer my question." "Then yes, selfishly, impossibly, yes, I would want you to choose immortality. To choose me, for as long as existence allows." His eyes met hers. "But I will love you just as fiercely if you choose mortality. I will stay with you for whatever time you have, and when you are gone, I will carry you with me." Clara's throat tightened. "That's not fair to you." "Life is rarely fair, but it is mine to spend as I choose, and I choose you." He moved to sit beside her, taking her hand. "What do you want, Clara? Not what you think I want, not what seems logical. What does your heart say?" She had been wrestling with this for months. The idea of becoming a vampire was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Immortality meant leaving behind her humanity, her aging parents, her normal life. But it also meant staying with Hadrian, experiencing the world through his eyes, having time to do everything she had ever dreamed of. "I don't know," she admitted. "Some days I want it desperately. Other days I think I'd be giving up too much." "Then we wait," Hadrian said simply. "We have time. Not infinite time, but enough. When you are certain, in either direction, we will revisit this. And if I decide to stay human, if I choose to age and die, then I will be grateful for every moment. And when you are old and I am still this, I will care for you with the same devotion I feel now." He kissed her knuckles. "There is no wrong choice here, my love. Only the choice that is true to who you are." Clara leaned against him, feeling the solid strength of him. "You're too good at this." "At what?" "Loving me the right way." His laugh rumbled through his chest. "I have had a very long time to learn what matters. You matter. Everything else is negotiable." They sat like that for a long time, watching the fire burn down to embers, wrapped in each other and the peace they had built together. The third delegation arrived in mid-November, but this time it was different. A single car rolled up to the cottage, and a young vampire emerged. She was tiny, with white hair cropped short and eyes the color of violet twilight. She approached the cottage cautiously, hands visible and empty. Clara answered the door, Hadrian appearing behind her within seconds. "Your Majesty," the young vampire said, bowing deeply. "My name is Lyra. I come from the council with a message." "I am not a king anymore," Hadrian said, but his voice was gentle. "What message?" "The council wishes to honor your service. They have voted to grant you and your companion status as protected persons, with all the rights and privileges thereof. You will not be disturbed again, and any vampire who threatens you will face the council's justice." Lyra held out a scroll. "They asked me to deliver this formally." Hadrian took the scroll, read it, and something in his expression softened. Tell the council I am grateful. There is more, Your Majesty. Lyra glanced at Clara, then back to Hadrian. The Reformation is working better than anyone expected. The houses are learning to cooperate. There is still conflict, still disagreement, but no violence, no war. You gave us a gift when you left, even if it did not feel like it at the time. The council wanted you to know that the realm thanks you. Clara saw the way Hadrian's shoulders relaxed, saw relief flood through him. He had been carrying guilt, she realized. Guilt over leaving, over the chaos he had caused. This absolved him. Thank you, Lyra, he said quietly, truly. The young vampire smiled, bright and genuine. May I say, Your Majesty, that you look happier than I ever saw you in court. Whatever you found here, I am glad for it. So am I, Hadrian replied, and his hand found Clara's. Lyra left, and the cottage fell into peaceful silence once more. Clara pulled Hadrian into a hug, feeling him hold her tight. It's really over, she murmured against his chest. The court is stable, you're free, and we're safe. It would appear so. He pulled back to look at her. How does it feel? Like we can finally breathe. Clara grinned. Like we can build a life without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then let us build it, Hadrian said, however you want it to look. Winter came, blanketing the cottage in lavender fields and snow. Clara and Hadrian spent the quiet months working on plans for the spring. More beehives, a greenhouse, expanding the cottage slightly to have more room. They fell into rhythms, domestic and comfortable. Morning tea while watching the sunrise, Hadrian reading aloud in the evenings, working side by side during the day. It was simple and perfect. Everything Clara had wanted without knowing she wanted it. On the winter solstice, Hadrian surprised her with a gift, a ring, delicate and wrought in silver, with a small stone the color of lavender. I know we cannot marry in the traditional sense, he said, kneeling in the snow outside the cottage. I am not human, and there are complications, but I wanted you to have something that symbolizes what you are to me. Clara Winters, you are my choice, my freedom, my home. Will you accept this? Clara could barely see him through her tears. You ridiculous romantic vampire, she said, laughing and crying at once. Yes, yes, of course, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Then he stood and kissed her, snowflakes catching in his white hair, both of them freezing and warm at once. That night, wrapped in blankets by the fire, Clara made her decision. I want to stay human, she said quietly. At least for now. Maybe someday I'll change my mind, but right now this life, this mortal existence feels right. I want to age with my parents still alive. I want to experience the normal progression of things. And then, when I'm old, if I still want forever, we can revisit it. Hadrian was silent for a moment, and Clara worried she had hurt him. But when he spoke, his voice was full of warmth. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for choosing what is true to yourself. He kissed her temple. I meant what I said. I will love you in whatever form you take, for whatever time we have. Even when I'm old and cranky? Especially then, I imagine you will be magnificently cranky. Clara elbowed him, and he laughed, and everything was exactly as it should be. Spring returned, and with it came the fourth and final delegation. This time it was Serafina herself, arriving in a modest car with only one attendant. She found Clara and Hadrian in the lavender fields, preparing the soil for new plantings. Hadrian, Serafina greeted, then turned to Clara. Miss Winters, I apologize for the intrusion. Is something wrong? Hadrian asked, immediately alert. No, everything is well. I came to invite you both to an event. Serafina held out an envelope. The realm is holding its first official council gathering, a celebration of the new system. We wanted you both there, as guests of honor. Clara exchanged a glance with Hadrian. We're not really the celebration type. I understand, but it would mean a great deal to the realm to see you there, to see that you are well and that the Reformation was worth it. Serafina's expression softened. You do not have to stay long. Just an appearance. Please. Hadrian looked to Clara, letting her decide. She thought about it, about the vampire court and the politics and the overwhelming grandeur of that world. Then she thought about the vampires who had been fighting, who were now learning to cooperate because of what Hadrian had built. "Okay," she said. "We'll come. For a little while." Serafina's smile was genuine. "Thank you. The gathering is in 2 weeks. I will send details." She left and Clara turned to Hadrian. "Are you all right with this? If you are willing to face the court for me, I can certainly face it with you." He pulled her close. "Besides, it will be good to see the Reformation in action, to know it truly worked." The gathering was held in the great hall beneath the city, and it was transformed. Where before it had felt heavy with tradition and conflict, now it felt almost festive. Vampires from all the houses mingled, talking and even laughing. The throne sat empty, a symbol now rather than a seat of power. Clara wore a dress Serafina had sent, deep purple and elegant without being ostentatious. Hadrian wore his formal attire again, and together they entered the hall to a round of applause that made Clara blush. Serafina greeted them personally, introducing them to the council members. Clara met vampires from across the realm, heard stories about how the new system was working, saw genuine hope in their faces. Constantine approached at one point, and Clara tensed. But the large vampire simply inclined his head in respect. "You were right," he said to Hadrian. "This is better. Harder, more frustrating, but better. Thank you for having the courage to force us to change." Hadrian looked stunned. "I did not expect to hear that from you." "Nor did I expect to say it, but here we are." Constantine's smile was wry. "Enjoy your retirement, Your Majesty. You earned it." As the night wore on, Clara found herself actually enjoying it. The vampires were less intimidating in this context, more like regular people navigating a new political system. She talked to several about the challenges of coalition building, about how to balance different house interests, and found herself offering thoughts from her experience running a small business. "You are good at this," Serafina said, appearing at her elbow. "Have you considered a formal role as liaison between the human and vampire worlds?" Clara laughed. "Absolutely not. I'm a lavender farmer, not a politician. You are whatever you choose to be, but the offer stands, should you ever change your mind." As midnight approached, Hadrian found Clara near the empty throne. "Ready to leave?" "More than ready. But this was good. I'm glad we came." They said their goodbyes, promised to visit again someday, and emerged into the human world hand in hand. The city was quiet, peaceful, and they walked through the streets together toward where they had parked. "Thank you," Hadrian said as they drove home, "for coming with me, for standing beside me through all of this. I could not have done any of it without you." "Partners," Clara said simply. "That's what we are." "Partners," Hadrian agreed, and the word sounded like a vow. The years that followed were quiet in the best way. Clara's lavender business grew, gaining a reputation for quality that attracted customers from across the region. Hadrian helped with everything, his supernatural strength and tireless work ethic making projects that should have taken months happen in weeks. They built the greenhouse, expanded the fields, added more beehives until they had dozens producing honey in various flavors. The village came to know Hadrian as Clara's partner, a quiet man who kept to himself but was unfailingly polite. If anyone noticed he never aged, never appeared in daylight, they kept it to themselves. Small towns knew how to mind their own business when it suited them. Clara's parents visited once, her mother fussing over the cottage and her father grilling Hadrian about his intentions. Hadrian bore it with grace and patience, winning them over with his obvious devotion to their daughter. "He's strange," Clara's mother said privately, "but he loves you. I can see it in everything he does." "I love him too," Clara replied, "more than I thought possible." The seasons cycled, each bringing its own rhythm. Spring planting, summer harvesting, autumn preparations, winter rest. Clara aged gradually, laugh lines appearing around her eyes, silver threading through her dark hair. Hadrian remained unchanged, eternally pale and beautiful, and loved her more with each passing year. They talked about turning again when Clara reached 30, and again at 35. Each time, Clara chose to wait, to live a little longer as human. Hadrian never pushed, never complained. He simply loved her as she was. The vampire court sent yearly greetings, updates on how the realm was thriving. The council system had solidified, with elections running smoothly and the houses cooperating more than they had in centuries. Serafina served 3 terms as chair before stepping down, and a vampire from one of the minor houses took her place, a testament to how far the Reformation had come. Hadrian read each update with quiet pride, grateful his legacy was not war, but peace. On the 10th anniversary of Hadrian leaving his throne, the village held its annual harvest festival. It was a tradition older than anyone could remember, a celebration of the year's bounty with food and music and dancing in the town square. Clara and Hadrian attended every year, but this time Serafina had written asking if she could visit during the festival. "I would like to see the life you have built," she had said, "to understand what was worth leaving a throne for." She arrived incognito, her distinctive appearance hidden by carefully human clothing and colored contact lenses. Clara introduced her as a friend from the city, and Serafina blended in remarkably well. The festival was in full swing, the square lit with string lights and filled with laughter. Clara sold her lavender products from a booth, while Hadrian helped organize the food tables. Serafina watched it all with wide eyes. "This is what you chose," she said to Hadrian during a quiet moment. "This simplicity." "This richness," Hadrian corrected, watching Clara laugh with a customer. "This connection. In the court, I knew thousands of vampires, but I did not truly know any of them. Here, I know my neighbors. I know the baker who always saves us the end pieces of bread, and the farmer who trades vegetables for honey, and the children who play in our lavender fields. I am part of something real. And you have no regrets?" "None. I spent 300 years ruling, and I would not trade these 10 years for any of them." He smiled. "You did well, Serafina. The realm is thriving. Because you gave us the foundation. But yes, we have built something good on it." She glanced around the festival. "I can see why you stayed." Later, as the sun set and the music started, Hadrian asked Clara to dance. They swayed together in the square, surrounded by humans who had no idea they were dancing beside a former vampire king. Serafina watched from the sidelines, and when Clara met her eyes, the vampire smiled and raised her glass in a silent toast. To choices, to freedom, to lives lived on one's own terms. As the stars came out, Hadrian held Clara close and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for this life." "Thank you for choosing it," Clara whispered back, "for choosing me." "Every day," Hadrian promised. "I choose you every day." The music played on, and they danced beneath the stars, a vampire and a human, impossibly happy in their tiny corner of the world. Time moved forward, as it always did. Clara reached 40, then 45. Her hair was more silver than dark now, and her hands showed the wear of years working the land. She was still strong, still fierce, still the woman Hadrian had fallen in love with. But mortality was catching up. She felt it in the way tasks took longer, in the aches that lingered after long days. Nothing serious yet, but the reminder was there. She was human, and humans did not last forever. The conversation about turning came up again on her 47th birthday. They were sitting in the lavender fields, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "I've been thinking," Clara said quietly, "about becoming like you." Hadrian's hand tightened on hers. "What have you decided?" "I don't want to wait until I'm old and desperate. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it while I'm still strong, still myself." She turned to look at him. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this because I'm afraid of dying. I'm doing it because I want more time with you. Because 10 years isn't enough, and 50 wouldn't be enough, and I'm greedy enough to want forever." "Clara." His voice was rough with emotion. "Let me finish. I've lived as human. I've experienced aging. I've buried my grandmother and said goodbye to my childhood. I've had the mortal experience, and it's been good, but it's not what I want anymore." She squeezed his hand. "I want to wake up beside you in 100 years and still be discovering new things. I want to see how the world changes, how the vampire realm evolves. I want everything, Hadrian, with you." He pulled her close, and she felt him shaking. "Are you absolutely certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything." "Then I will turn you, and I will spend eternity grateful that you chose me." They made plans carefully. Clara settled her affairs, writing letters to her parents explaining that she was moving away, creating a story that would let her disappear from her human life without raising alarms. She sold the lavender business to a young couple from the village who had apprenticed with her for years, people she trusted to care for it. The cottage, though, she kept. It would always be theirs, the place where everything had changed. On the night of the spring equinox, 50 years to the day after Hadrian had first appeared in her lavender field, Clara laid down in their bed and looked up at him. "I'm ready," she said. "I will make it as painless as possible," Hadrian promised, "and I will be here when you wake." "I know," Clara smiled. "I trust you." The turning was agony and ecstasy, her body dying and reforming, mortality burning away to leave something new. Hadrian held her through it, his voice steady, anchoring her to the world. It lasted 3 days, and when it was over, Clara opened eyes that saw colors she had never imagined, heard sounds too subtle for human ears, felt strength singing through her veins. She was vampire. Hadrian was there, just as he had promised, watching her with wonder. "How do you feel?" Clara sat up, testing her new body. Everything was sharper, clearer, more intense. She could hear his heartbeat, smell the lavender fields outside, feel the night air on her skin like silk. "Incredible," she breathed. "Is it always like this?" "You will learn to filter the input, to control it. But yes, the intensity remains." He touched her face gently. "Your eyes are different, still brown, but with flecks of gold now. And you're still beautiful." Clara leaned into his touch. "We really have forever now." "We do." Hadrian kissed her, and it was different now, both of them vampire, both immortal, equal in a way they had not been before. They spent weeks adjusting to Clara's new existence. She learned to control her strength, to hunt without being cruel, to exist in the night. Hadrian was a patient teacher, guiding her through the transition with care. The hardest part was saying goodbye to her parents, maintaining the fiction that she had moved away. She wrote them letters, sent gifts, called occasionally with elaborate lies about her new life in a distant city. It hurt, but it was necessary, and in return, she had time. Unlimited, stretching time with the man she loved. Years passed, then decades. The cottage remained their sanctuary, though they traveled now, seeing the world together. They visited the vampire court occasionally, watching the realm continue to evolve and thrive. They made friends, both vampire and human, though they were careful about the humans, never staying in one place long enough to make their immortality obvious. Clara proved to be a talented vampire, her human practicality translating well into navigating their world. She and Hadrian became known as advisors, people the council could consult when difficult decisions arose. They never sought power, but their wisdom was valued. Through it all, they loved each other with an intensity that never faded. A century in, they were still discovering new things about each other. 2 centuries, and they were still choosing each other every single day. The cottage changed with them, renovated and updated while keeping its essential character. The lavender fields remained, tended by a succession of careful owners who never quite understood why the previous owners were so generous, so involved even after selling. On the 300th anniversary of Hadrian leaving his throne, Serafina visited them one last time. She was ancient now, even by vampire standards, having led the realm for longer than Hadrian had. But she was planning to step down, to pass leadership to the next generation, and she wanted to see them before she did. "You were right," she said, sitting in their cottage garden. "About everything. The Reformation saved us. The council system has spread to other vampire realms, changing how our kind governs across the world. You started a revolution when you walked away." "I started it when I stayed," Hadrian corrected, pulling Clara close. "When I chose love over duty, life over legacy. That was the revolution." Serafina smiled. Perhaps. But look at what came from it. She gestured at them, at the cottage, at the peace they had built. You found what every immortal seeks and few find: purpose beyond power, happiness beyond ambition. We found each other, Clara said simply. Everything else followed. After Serafina left, Clara and Hadrian sat in the lavender fields as they had so many times before. The stars wheeled overhead, ancient and constant, and they were part of that constancy now. Do you ever regret it? Clara asked. Leaving the throne? Never. Not for a single moment. Hadrian kissed her temple. That crown was a cage. You were freedom. We were freedom, Clara corrected. Together. Together, Hadrian agreed. They sat in comfortable silence watching the night sky, two vampires in a tiny cottage surrounded by lavender, impossibly happy in the life they had chosen. The court had begged him to stay. He had left his throne to live in her tiny cottage, and in doing so he had found not just love, but himself. It was, Clara thought as Hadrian's arms tightened around her, the best decision either of them had ever made. The world turned, seasons changed, and they remained. Constant as the stars, enduring as stone, bound together by a choice made centuries ago in a lavender field. Forever had never looked so beautiful.